You're watching PIX on Politics Daily with Dan Mannarino.
Welcome to PIX on Politics Daily. I'm Henry Rosoff, in like I am every Friday for Dan, who's getting ready to tape our big PIX on Politics show, which airs Friday at 6:30 and then again with a re-air on Sunday morning. It's been a busy week. I mean, it was National Bagel Day a few days ago. I was excited about that. But as far as the politics were concerned, really quite the week. We had Mayor Mamdani now zeroing in on both education, childcare, and his ongoing text message exchanges with President Donald Trump. We also had State of the State from Governor Kathy Hochul. We, of course, had the city council staffer who was arrested by ICE. So a lot going on that's politically adjacent. But I wanted to dive in today and deal with one of the big policy discussions that we're seeing around town, the recently announced plan to expand to universal child care, beginning by expanding into the 2-year-olds in New York City. About a 2,000 person, I wouldn't call it pilot program, but expansion is going to start this fall, and then it's going to very quickly ramp up from there. So to dive into all of this, we're going to bring in Abigail Kramer, a reporter with Chalkbeat here in the city who's written extensively about childcare. Abigail, thanks for joining us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
So let's jump right in. There are some concerns with this expansion relative to what we saw before with 3K. Why don't you outline those concerns for us to start us off?
Absolutely. So what we have in the city is a really complicated system for affordable and subsidized childcare. We've got programs that run directly through the Department of Education, some of which are in public schools. We've got programs that run in daycare centers that are, in neighborhoods all across the city. We've got programs that run in people's homes, right? Family childcare providers that run programs, usually staffed by just 1 or 2 people. And then we've got a voucher system that helps people pay for care in lots of different settings, right? So the system is complicated. There's not very much uniformity, and a lot of stuff doesn't work very well. So as you said, this expansion to universal childcare is a really big piece of the mayor's election campaign. It's a big commitment that he's got, and the state funding to create new 2-care seats is a big deal in terms of creating access. But yeah, there are challenges across the system. The one I guess I would flag as the biggest challenge is really the workforce issues. So there's a couple different things. Probably the biggest is it's a question of pay, right? Early childhood teachers have never been paid well, right? And what the city has done over the last several years in expanding the system is created some kind of crazy pay inequities, right? So let's say I'm an early childhood teacher, right? I'm qualified, I'm licensed, I'm good at my job, and I'm going to work with 4-year-olds, right? So now if I can get a job at one of these programs that's run directly by the school system, I'm going to get paid more money than if I'm doing the exact same work with the same age kids in a daycare center that's in the community. Not only am I getting paid more, but I'm working shorter hours. I'm getting my summers off. I've got December break. I've got February break, right? When schools are closed, right? I'm not working. So if I'm a teacher, and to be clear, everybody I've talked to about this says that early childhood teachers are there because they're passionate about working with kids. They're committed to the work.
But they're working people and they deserve to get paid, obviously.
Sure.
Yes.
I've got my own kids to raise. I'm taking that job, right? So what we've created is a situation where the community-based centers, which the city needs, right? They can't hire staff. And when they do hire staff, they can't keep them, right? So huge workforce issues, and it's really unclear how the Mamdani administration is going to solve that.
Well, and I know the UFT was standing with the governor and mayor in this announcement, and obviously that's a piece of this puzzle. You're focused on the non-UFT union members. That union is really, as I understand it, what lifts the pay scale when they work for the city, correct?
Correct. I mean, the UFT actually does represent some of the city's smallest childcare providers, including people who run home-based programs. They're called family childcare providers. So the union actually stands to get a significant increase in its membership, right, with this expansion. But where's the money going to come from to bring these people? I mean, essentially, they are getting paid poverty wages, right? And you just can't run a universal system by exploiting people's passion.
Well, and I know that the mayor has said they're initially going to start by effectively doing contracting. He's been with this for first round of 2000. He's asked, well, how are you going to do some immediate expansion? Contracting. And that would mean engaging with more of these centers at the lower end of the pay scale, right? Because he's not saying I'm going to expand city resources. I'm going to contract with childcare providers. What has the mayor said, if anything, yet? And I get that the policy is relatively in its infancy. I mean, it doesn't even exist yet per se. It's just a promise. What, if anything, has the mayor said about this inequity that exists and his plan to remedy as he moves forward and expands to twos?
So far, I'd say there's been a lot of sort of philosophical commitments, right? The mayor has said things that I think, are really important about being really committed to working with the smallest and the community-based providers, committed to making this program work for kids with disabilities who currently often sit on wait lists for months, if not years, for early childhood programs, committed to making programs accessible to families in shelters. But yeah, there haven't been details about how they're going to pay for it, about where they're going to find the space, and about how the contracts are going to work, which, fair enough. It's been like a week, right? The mayor has brought on a lot of people who are really deeply versed in doing these expansions, who have a deep history in childcare policy and strategy. So I imagine that there is a lot of conversation about kind of how the details are gonna work. A lot of granular stuff needs to be done. But for example, I had a conversation very recently with Emmy Liss, who is the new head of the mayor's childcare office. And basically what she said is that they are committed to working across city agencies to do creative problem solving, and they're committed to really communicating with providers to see what they need, but there aren't any details. If they've got the details, they're not announcing them publicly yet.
What about the other issue? Many of these daycare centers they may be looking to contract with don't just cater to 2-year-olds. I mean, the mayor does eventually see going from 6 weeks and up until you're in the proper school system. But that being said, it feels like it would be weird for a childcare center that has that even younger demographic already to just have their twos subsidized. I feel like they'd go to the city and be like, subsidize all my kids, or give me, vouchers for all my kids. Is that a concern? I talked to the mayor a little bit about this, and he said it was just a matter of being pragmatic. We go to 2 and then we go to 1, and fair enough. But can you find contractors that are willing to effectively cut their daycare business model in half? Is that an issue?
Well, it's really complicated. If you talk to people in the childcare world, a lot of people have that criticism kind of from the beginning of the childcare reforms under Bloomberg and then de Blasio, former mayors. So, they're like, okay, we should have built this system from zero going up. It doesn't make sense for providers to build them down. So if you think about a daycare center, right? If I'm running a daycare center, ideally what I want is a classroom for the youngest kids, which is then going to feed into my 2-year-olds classroom, which is going to feed into my 3-year-olds, which is going to feed into my 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
So
well, it's continuity of care for the parents and good business for the daycare. So you totally get it, right? Yeah.
Everybody likes that, right? But that is actually not typically the way it works right now. And it's a little bit complicated. But the last time there was sort of a big reform around contracting, the last time the contracts went out with centers under Mayor de Blasio, a lot of kind of crazy things happened. So, for example, I talked to a director of a center yesterday. They've got a whole lot of childcare centers in Brooklyn. The last time there were contracts, they actually lost their seats for infants and toddlers because the city wanted to move those seats into the home-based providers, right? And they got more seats for 3 and 4-year-olds. The problem is in the neighborhoods they're in, there's a lot of families that qualify for subsidized care for 3 and 4-year-olds. So they can't actually fill those seats. And now they've got 2 classrooms sitting empty, despite the fact that there are families in the neighborhood that are sitting on wait lists for infant and care for babies and toddlers, right?
Well yeah. No, and go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say there's like a lot of sort of bureaucratic administrative problems that actually sort of present an opportunity for the Mamdani administration to do some short-term fixes, right? Like there's some low-hanging fruit here where you could fix some of these crazy contracting inflexibilities and create a better situation for the providers and more access for families.
Very complicated. Certainly a topic that's not going out anywhere, especially as they start to build it out and we start to get a sense perhaps over the summer about what this looks like in the fall, and we will be there for all of it. You'll be watching even more closer than us. We're chasing everything in the political world, and it's great to have reporters like you in town really focusing on these issues, and we're glad to give you a platform to really highlight some of your great work. Abigail Kramer, please come back some other time.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
And that'll do it for this episode of PIX on Politics. Of course, you can catch the big show, PIX on Politics with Dan Mannarino, airing at 6:30 every Friday with a re-air on Sunday morning. I appear there. I fill in on that show as well, in addition to other responsibilities as our senior political reporter in the field. We appreciate you stopping by PIX on Politics Daily. You have a great day.